Hey there, I'm Joey with American Eats, and I want to tell you about my recent trip to Louisville, Kentucky. So when I would tell people I was going to Louisville, because I was going for a bachelor party, but I also wanted to go explore the food scene a few days beforehand, and when I would tell people I was going, they'd be like, why Louisville? And honestly, I wasn't really sure exactly how to answer that, but then once I actually went there, my mind was blown. It's such a cool combination of smaller town with a lot of really cool up-and-coming restaurants, areas, neighborhoods, stuff like that. So I really enjoyed Louisville, and I think when you make it a point to go, you will too. So I flew in Tuesday afternoon, and I went to my hotel, which was located right in the heart of downtown over by the Ohio River. And immediately I changed and I walked over to Repeal Oak-Fired Steakhouse. And sometimes people think steakhouses can be a little overrated, but this place reminded me why they are the spot to be. So I started off my meal with an old fashioned, because if there's anything people know about Louisville, it's that you have to drink whiskey and bourbon. And so I started off with an old fashioned. I got this really nice truffle honey burrata appetizer. And then for my main course, I got a delicious bone-in filet mignon, which it's nice because it's a little bit more rich than your usual lean filet, but it had so much flavor. It was perfectly seared and had a nice crust, but it didn't take away from the flavor and quality of the meat. And then for my side dish, because steakhouse, the steak is important, but the sides are what really makes it. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to get the bacon or the Yukon Gold whipped potatoes. And luckily I didn't have to choose, because the server actually ended up bringing me out a little bit of each, so I had some half servings, and this whole meal was just next level. Not only was each individual item incredible, but I was also able to do a little bit of mixing and matching, like putting a little bit of mashed potatoes on the piece of bacon, putting the piece of steak on the Parker house roll that they brought out. So all kinds of things that really elevated that meal to the next level. And then I was super full because I had eaten probably enough for 2.5, 3 people, but I ate it by myself. And so since I was so full, I realized that I had to have ice cream for dessert, because the ice cream, there's always room for it. So I walked a couple blocks away to a spot called Louisville Cream, and it just looked like everything you'd like in an ice cream spot. I told the cashier, I've never been here before, what should I get? And immediately she said I needed to get the banana pudding flavor, which was perfect because I ate it in a cone on my walk back, and it was light. It was just as what I needed for a kind of warm, muggy evening like it was, but then it had little bits of Nilla wafer in it, so it had some nice texture to it, and so it wasn't too sweet, but it had just what I needed to really ease my way into the night after having a great steakhouse meal. All right, so after my early night, induced by eating a lot of red meat and ice cream, I wanted to wake up and really kickstart my day right, so I actually went for a run over in the riverfront, the Louisville Loop that they call it, so I was able to take in a nice view of the actual riverfront, and it's such a key part of not only the old school development of Louisville as a city, but also still, there's so much going on there. There was a lot of activities, some booze cruises, some river yachts, dinner cruises, all kinds of really interesting stuff like that. So I was able to really appreciate that full area of Louisville. And then after that, I was like, I've really earned a special treat. So I took an electric scooter in one of the bike lanes. Louisville actually has an amazing bike lane scene. I never felt nervous like I sometimes do riding around other cities. But I went to a spot called Pana Bakery y Cafe. So it's just a Mexican bakery, and they have a little window where you can order, but behind that you can see them actually making everything, kneading dough, forming pastries, putting things in the oven. So when you can see something like that, then you know that they're proud of what they're doing, which they really had every right to be. So I got 2 things. I got a cinnamon roll and I got a donut filled with a sweet cream, and it was just, both of them were perfect. They were light, they were crispy, they were not really excessively sweet, but definitely very sweet. And so everyone who was working there was super friendly and helpful, because when you're looking at a menu of like 4 or 5 things and they all look really good, narrowing it down is about the hardest thing you could possibly do. So I really enjoyed that, and then I had a couple hours of work that I wanted to take care of, so I walked right into the Logan Street Market that it's right in front of, and I had a little bit of coffee to counteract all the carbs and sugar I just had. And then after a couple hours of doing work at the food hall, I realized I needed to eat a little something else. And I didn't want to quite eat at a food hall. I wanted to expand my horizons a little bit more. So I went to a spot that was pretty close called Royal's Hot Chicken. So with hot chicken, you walk a fine line. You're not sure if you're gonna eat something and it's gonna just have a nice little kick to it and you're gonna enjoy the rest of your day. Or it might be a day-altering meal where you're just dripping sweat, tearing up, snotting out the nose, all that gross stuff. So luckily, this was not that experience. I just got the hot level, so there are 2 levels hotter and 2 levels lower than that. But you can get it all kinds of formats, like just as tenders, you can get it bone-in, you can get it on a sandwich, but I got mine in tacos, which was perfect, had some pickled onions, some homemade ranch, just a really nice balanced dish where you could really let the chicken speak for itself, but it was never overpowered, and it never overpowered everything else. And I got that with a side of the broccoli bacon salad, so your classic Southern trope of taking something that's healthy and boring, like broccoli, and adding bacon to it. What's not to like? So after that meal, I still had a few more hours of work to do. So fortunately, like not even a block away, there was another coffee shop. So it was called Please and Thank You. And while I was walking in, I figured maybe I'll get some coffee, some tea. But then I saw a very intriguing sign outside that said they have the best chocolate chip cookies in Kentucky. And when you say something like that, I have to find out if it's true or not. So I actually got a chocolate chip cookie along with their really nice iced black tea blend, and both of them were phenomenal. The tea was nice, refreshing. It had a good balance of fruit flavor as well as mint in the tea itself. But the cookie, oh my God, it was just such a well mixed dough, and it didn't have too many chocolate chips to where it was excessive, but just the right amount to keep them being a little something exciting. It was chewy, but it still had plenty of texture to it where it wasn't falling apart, and they serve it warm like all chocolate chip cookies should be. So after doing a couple extra hours of work with some tea and a cookie to propel me, it was time for me to move on to the dinner of the night. But first, so once I went back to the hotel, I wanted to get a drink. So I went to a spot right around the corner called Proof on Main, which is your typical like happy hour spot where you can get some cool whiskey drinks, and the bartenders have all kinds of other concoctions going on. So I got a drink called the Rye Birdie, which is like a rye, pretty much like an old fashioned. So anyway, that was nice. And then after that, I went to Mussel and Burger Bar, which was right next door. And as you can probably surmise from the name, they specialize in different types of mussels and different types of burgers. So not usually a combo you would eat together, but it was a really awesome experience doing that. And then for the mussels, I got a Thai coconut curry version of it, which usually I feel like when I eat mussels, it's pretty much gonna be like a garlic white wine Italian kind of deal. So it was cool seeing mussels in this different context. And then in addition to that, for the burger, I got the CEO burger, which had on some Gruyere, some caramelized onions, a whole stack of arugula, maybe too high of a stack of arugula, a couple other things. And I got the duck fat fingerling potatoes on the side, which made for a really nice meal. Wasn't too overwhelming, so it was a good way for me to, after a long day of eating, cap it off the right way. And then after that, it was still light outside and I wanted to explore a little bit more of the area, also maybe help with digesting a little bit and feel a little less full before I went to bed. So I just walked around the neighborhood, and I really appreciate the downtown Louisville area because, like I said, it has this cool, like bustling, like upward rising feel to it, but it still is a small, not too overwhelming city like a lot of other places can be. So in that way, it reminds me of like a Philly or like a downtown Denver kind of place. So then Thursday, I wanted to get my day started early because this was when the bachelor party part of my weekend was going to start. And so I wanted to check out something that Louisville is known for, which is the hot brown sandwich, which is like ham, turkey on bread, like an open-faced sandwich covered in Mornay sauce and a little bit of cheese with some bacon, some Parmesan cheese. So I figured, there's all these options of places to get the hot brown. Why not go to the place where it all began? So I went to J. Graham's Cafe at the Brown Hotel. See, Brown Hotel, hot brown, all makes sense now. And so I went in there, and it's a really cool, classy hotel. They gave me a newspaper while I ate, which was, I felt like a retiree or something. It felt very cool. I see why people used to read them. And then I actually got the sandwich, and I'll say it maybe wasn't quite my cup of tea. It was a sort of strange combo. I don't usually love that style of turkey where it's not like deli turkey. It was just kind of like a Thanksgiving style piece of turkey, but the Mornay sauce had a lot of flavor, and the bacon and Parmesan that were sprinkled on top, I think really took things to the next level. So I can see why it's something that they talk a lot about. I don't know if I would necessarily get it again. But it was definitely a good way to start my day. And then the Bachelor himself was coming into town a little bit early. So since I was already in town, he and I met up and we hung out for a couple hours, and then we wanted to get a quick bite before the rest of the group came in. So we went to Bristol Bar and Grill. And so we weren't super hungry, but they did happen to have $3 beer drafts, so obviously we had to get a lot of those. And we wanted to eat a little something as well, so they actually have these green chili wontons, which are, you know, a nice just fried dumpling kind of thing, but they're stuffed with this cheese and the actual green chilies themselves and served with a guacamole kind of avocado dipping sauce. And again, just a really cool light dish where, you know, you look at it, you don't think too much of it, but then as soon as you take a bite or as soon as you tear it, it shoots out right at you. So kind of what I pointed out to my buddies is, you know, while we're in Louisville, home of Muhammad Ali, we had another thing that floats like a butterfly but stings like a bee. Yeah. After Bristol Bar and Grill, a couple more guys came in, so we went over to Bluegrass Brewing Company to just get a quick lunch while we were waiting for more guys to come in. And you know, it's your typical place where you can get some good whiskey drinks as well as all kinds of good bar food. So we got, you know, we split some wings that were really good. We split some, like a chicken finger platter, and then just this appetizer sampler that had a couple other fried things. So nothing on our table was not fried, which is exactly what you're looking for at a place like that. But it was all definitely tasty. And then the rest of the group came in, and we were just kind of hanging out a little bit at our Airbnb that was, again, just right in the heart of Louisville, overlooking the river. And then as the night went on, we decided to go to Troll Pub under the bridge, which I thought was an interesting name for a place, but you're going down underground when you're there, and it's just kind of your typical dive bar sort of feel to it, where unfortunately the drinks are very strong and very cheap. So that was for better and for worse, that was the way that we ended our Thursday night, which then made Friday morning a little bit of a slower one, and a couple of us picked up Biscuit Belly, where again, I was not operating it. I was maybe on low power mode on an iPhone, but so I just had a regular biscuit with some jelly, which was really good. But some guys were getting stuff with pimento cheese on them. Some folks were getting like a chicken biscuit. All kinds of really cool things that were a good way to start off that day. And then after that, we went to the Evan Williams Distillery tour, which is super interesting how they integrate tech into telling that story about Louisville as a whole, but especially about the process of distilling whiskey. So if you like history and you like booze, you're gonna like this place. And it was a good hair of the dog situation where we went to the tasting room at the end, and you walk in and it just smells like you're standing in a glass of whiskey, which is good and definitely was very humbling for us in our state after our night at Troll Pub under the bridge. And so then after the distillery tour, we went to grab lunch at Merle's Whiskey Kitchen, which is just your pretty standard place where you're gonna go and you're gonna be able to get a lot of drinks, you're gonna be able to get some good food. So I got a fried chicken sandwich that was just what the doctor ordered, some good fries, we got a couple appetizers, so definitely a solid spot. And then afterwards we wanted to spend a couple hours taking in the city, so we went to the Corner Lounge at the Aloft Hotel, which is right at the intersection of Main Street and First Street. So it is a bustling intersection, so we were sitting right outside where you were able to see everything coming and going. It was Pride Month, so there was a parade that was coming by, so definitely a high energy way to spend our afternoon. Also, the drinks were great. And then after that, we had our main attraction, which was going to a Louisville Bats game, so the minor league baseball team. So we walked over to go to the game, and it was a lot of fun. And, baseball's fun no matter what level it is, but especially that minor league is a little scrappier than your general MLB game. And we got free hot dogs with our tickets, but ultimately we still had a little bit more food that we wanted to eat. So then afterward, we went to 4th Street Live, which is on 4th Street, as you may guess, but it's a enclosed, almost plaza area, which has all kinds of bars and restaurants. And so we went to a spot called Howl at the Moon, which is a piano bar. And it was just so much fun. There were multiple bachelor and bachelorette parties all there together, but the drinks weren't too expensive, and the band itself was really fun. Everybody was having a great time. We were there way later than we expected to be, and so we got out maybe around 1, and we were like, we're still a little bit hungry. But unfortunately, not a lot of authentic restaurants local spots were open that late, so we did end up getting White Castle, which was maybe not the Louisville's finest, but it was what we needed in that moment. And Saturday was our last full day in Louisville, so we started it off by going to the Louisville Slugger Museum, which is how they make those Louisville Slugger bats. So it's a really cool way to see not only how prevalent it is in the MLB by seeing all these famous players and their bats who used to use Louisville Sluggers, everybody from Derek Jeter to Babe Ruth. So some of the all-time hitters right there. And then you get to see how they actually make the bats, which again was a really cool experience. So highly recommend that. So if you're not into the whiskey side of things, you should definitely check out the Louisville Slugger Museum. And then afterward, we went to a spot called Doc Crow's, which not only is like a barbecue and southern smokehouse, but they also have a raw bar. And so I got something that was, when something, a menu has a little like our favorite kind of thing, you always have to get. I got the half chicken, which was smoked, and it was just roasted, so it wasn't too heavy, but it had a nice rub on it. It was served with this really nice like bourbon honey, so you were able to dip that in everything. And that came with their I think it's just called Doc's chips, which were just some homemade kettle chips with a really nice seasoning blend on them. So that was a really nice meal, and everybody was pretty full after that. So that really kept us going for the rest of our trip. We actually ended up going back to that corner bar just because we figured why not go back? We became such locals there, real regulars. And then for our night, we ended up going back to 4th Street Live, but this time we went to the PBR, which it's got a mechanical bull, it's got a whole big area where you can do some dancing. There were people who had little, like those syringe kind of shots that they just like, put in your mouth and then make you pay money for them. But when in Rome, when in Louisville. So we ended up having a pretty late night there, and then the next morning we had to really vacate our Airbnb pretty quickly, so we cleaned, and we still had a couple hours before our various flights, so we just ended up all posting up in Blackbeard Espresso, where I got a really nice iced Americano, and we just kind of were all zombies sitting around there, but they were super nice. Everyone was happy with their drinks. They had some other sandwiches, all kinds of stuff like that. So you were really able to take in the full Louisville experience while you were there, because you got to see people who were in town for a convention, people who were coming or going from the Louisville Bat Museum, and then you had plenty of people who had just really taken in Louisville as a bachelor or bachelorette party or just a weekend out. So there were some people who maybe had one too many whiskeys the night before. You had people who were about to go on their distillery tours. So what we saw there at Blackbeard Espresso is that no matter what reason you're coming to Louisville, everybody's there to enjoy the same stuff. So it is awesome whether you're a historic person, you want to see some of the distillery tours at the Louisville Slugger Museum. It's great whether you're into baseball and you want to not only go to the Slugger Museum, but also check out a Louisville Bats game. Or if you're like me and you want to check out some really good food, you can make sure that Louisville will leave you happy and keep you covered. So if you want to learn even more about the amazing food scene that Louisville has to offer, make sure you check us out at American-Eats.com.